Have you ever felt that something isn't quite right, but you can't pinpoint exactly what it is? This subtle discomfort might be a sign that you're in a toxic relationship. Sometimes, our body and mind warn us in discreet ways, like a sense of unease, an unexplained fatigue, or even a lack of energy that doesn't seem to go away. These unconscious signals don't just appear out of nowhere. They have a higher purpose, alerting us to something we need to see and change in our lives. Carl Jung, the renowned psychotherapist, believed that the unconscious sends us signals to guide us, often when we are ignoring what we truly need for our well-being. These signs might be subtle at first, but if ignored, they become more intense and harder to dismiss. And that's where the magic of self-awareness comes in. By learning to listen to our intuition and understand the signs from the universe, we can transform our reality and make decisions more aligned with who we truly are. Now, if you want to continue the journey of self-awareness and understand more about how these signs can transform your life, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss our upcoming videos. Also, we have an exclusive members space where you can deepen your knowledge and spiritual practices even further. Emotional exhaustion is a difficult feeling to describe, yet impossible to ignore. Often, we get used to the idea that we're just tired, without realizing that something deeper is happening within us. This kind of fatigue isn't related to lack of sleep or physical weariness, but to the emotional overload we accumulate over time. If you feel drained after interacting with certain people or after prolonged exposure to toxic environments, it's important to start paying attention to these signs. Emotional exhaustion can be the first alert that something needs to change in your life. In relationships, especially those involving toxic dynamics, emotional exhaustion manifests when we are constantly giving of ourselves without receiving the same level of support or care in return. The feeling of always sacrificing, being the one who carries the weight of the other, begins to wear down our vital energy. In many cases, this exhaustion is silent and progressive, leading people to believe that this burnout is just part of the normal routine. However, what happens is that the emotional toll builds up and starts to affect every area of life. The unconscious, according to Jung, plays a fundamental role in alerting us to these limits. When we reach the point of exhaustion, our unconscious sends signals, such as feelings of helplessness or hopelessness, which reflect what we are experiencing internally. Perhaps you have, at some point, felt incapable of making decisions or paralyzed by situations, even though you know you need to act. These feelings don't arise from nowhere. They are the result of accumulated unprocessed emotions, unresolved wounds, and relationships that drain our energy without giving anything back. It's important to reflect on how the people and situations around us may be contributing to our emotional drain. Sometimes, the pursuit of others' approval or the fear of confronting reality keeps us in unhealthy relationships. The constant need to please, to put ourselves second, creates a vicious cycle that prevents us from seeing that exhaustion is not normal. While society often tells us that we must always be strong, true strength lies in recognizing our limits and respecting our emotional well-being. The good news is that it's possible to reverse this situation. By recognizing the signs of emotional exhaustion, you begin to take the first step toward liberation. The key lies in self-awareness and the courage to make choices more aligned with what truly matters. If you find yourself in this state, it's crucial to stop and reflect on what is really draining your energy and start setting clear boundaries. Remember, your emotional well-being should always be a priority. When we take care of our mental and emotional health, we are able to attract more balanced relationships and live a life that is fuller and more connected to our true essence. Carl Jung's theory of the shadow reveals how our deeper and hidden parts can influence our behavior, often without our awareness. The shadow isn't necessarily a negative thing, but represents aspects of our personality that we repress, deny, or simply cannot integrate. These are the parts of ourselves that, out of fear, shame, or resistance, we try to hide, but deep down, they still influence our actions, thoughts, and emotions. In a toxic relationship, the shadow can manifest in subtle yet powerful ways, triggering involuntary reactions that place us in harmful patterns. When we are in difficult relationships, we are often confronted with aspects of ourselves that we don't like to see. These intense emotional reactions, such as anger, excessive sadness, or even the constant fear of rejection, can be manifestations of our shadow, trying to draw attention to something unresolved within us. The truth is, these reactions don't come out of nowhere. They are responses to external stimuli that touch on emotional wounds that have not been healed. For example, when someone criticizes us, we may feel a disproportionate anger, which often has roots in an insecurity or feeling of inadequacy we have carried since childhood. The real challenge is to recognize that these reactions are not solely about what the other person is doing, but about what is being awakened inside us. When we don't understand our shadow, we may project our emotions and inner conflicts onto others. This means that instead of focusing on the other person's behavior, we should turn inward and investigate what within us is being triggered by that stimulus. This process of self-awareness is liberating because it allows us to break the cycle of impulsive reactions and begin to act in a more conscious and balanced way. Integrating the shadow doesn't mean suppressing or denying these emotions, but rather recognizing and accepting them as legitimate parts of who we are. By doing so, we are able to transform these involuntary reactions into something constructive, using them as tools for learning and growth. When we can look at our shadow without fear, we begin to understand the lessons it brings and learn how to deal with our fears and insecurities in a healthier way. This allows us not only to improve our relationships, but also to enhance our relationship with ourselves. In the context of toxic relationships, integrating the shadow can be an essential step in breaking the cycle of emotional dependence and starting to establish healthy boundaries. When we begin to understand our reactions and their origins, we can make clearer decisions aligned with our true values and needs. The shadow teaches us to recognize that we are complex beings, with light and darkness, and that accepting both parts is key to our spiritual and emotional growth. This process of integration can be challenging, but it is the key to freeing ourselves from negative patterns and creating more authentic and balanced relationships. Being in a toxic relationship is like being on an emotional roller coaster. The constant back and forth between moments of pleasure and pain creates a sense of chaos, where everything feels out of control. In such an environment, conflicts are not only frequent but also intense and draining. What starts as a small disagreement can quickly escalate into a huge confrontation, where both sides seem to lose their reason. This cycle of misunderstandings and extreme emotions can consume our energy, leaving us exhausted, confused, and often unsure of what's really happening. The truth is, in many of these relationships, the intensity of the conflicts is a form of emotional manipulation, where one or both partners instigate fights and misunderstandings, perhaps even without realizing it. This can happen because, on an unconscious level, the individuals involved are seeking control or recognition, and conflicts become the only way to express their needs and frustrations. However, this behavior creates a vicious cycle. The more the conflicts escalate, the harder it becomes to find peace and harmony, creating an environment where love and understanding seem to disappear. Moreover, the constant conflicts can also reflect what Jung called the shadow within the relationship. When two people are not emotionally or spiritually aligned, their shadows tend to collide, creating tension. One partner may provoke the other indirectly, touching on emotional wounds that have not been healed. In this scenario, emotions can become uncontrollable and destructive patterns repeat. Emotional chaos arises as a way to avoid addressing the real issue, the unresolved wounds within each person, which continue to manifest in arguments and misunderstandings. However, it is crucial to understand that this emotional chaos is not happening by chance. The unconscious, as Jung said, uses these conflicts as a way to teach us something about ourselves. Every argument, every intense feeling of anger or frustration is an opportunity to look inward and reflect on what we need to change. What is projected outward is often a reflection of what hasn't been resolved within us. So, instead of simply reacting to conflicts, it's important to ask, what is this situation teaching me about myself? When we become aware that conflicts are opportunities for learning, we begin to change the way we handle adversity. Instead of reacting impulsively, we can stop, reflect, and respond in a more balanced way. This allows us to break the cycle of chaos and start transforming the relationship. By understanding that conflicts are reflections of internal issues, we can use difficulties as tools for self-awareness and for strengthening our relationships. Rather than fearing conflicts, We can view them as invitations for transformation and growth. Self-love is the foundation for any healthy relationship, whether with others or with ourselves. When we truly love ourselves, we are able to establish clear boundaries, recognize what benefits us, and distance ourselves from everything that harms us. In toxic relationships, we often find ourselves in a cycle where we put the needs of others above our own, believing that love is synonymous with constant sacrifice. However, this distorted view of love weakens us and makes us vulnerable to manipulation and emotional abuse. Self-love is not just about taking care of ourselves physically or doing pleasant things for ourselves, but about cultivating a deep respect for who we are, with all our qualities and flaws. When we begin to respect ourselves and recognize our worth, we are able to perceive the signs of the universe and the messages it sends about the relationships we are involved in. Often, difficult situations arise as a reflection of how we see ourselves and how we allow others to treat us. When we truly love ourselves, we can recognize when something isn't right and make the decision to step away from anything that does not respect us or is harmful. The relationship between self-esteem and attracting healthy relationships is direct. When we are in harmony with ourselves, we attract people who are also in tune with our level of self-love. If we are in a state of emotional scarcity, we tend to seek relationships that reinforce that scarcity, which keeps us trapped in destructive cycles. Self-love is the key to breaking this cycle, as it allows us to demand and cultivate relationships based on respect, mutual support, and understanding. When we love ourselves, we can identify toxic behaviors and do not hesitate to set boundaries. Moreover, self-love also helps us heal the emotional wounds we carry from the past. Often, we engage in toxic relationships because we are seeking in others something we did not receive during our childhood or in previous experiences. However, only when we love ourselves and heal internally can we fill these emotional voids in a healthy and balanced way. Self-love is an ongoing process of self-acceptance and forgiveness, allowing us to view our flaws with compassion and understand that we are worthy of love, respect, and happiness. When we cultivate self-love, we transform our relationship with the world and with others. Relationships become more authentic, balanced, and based on mutual understanding of each person's worth. By learning to love ourselves, we free ourselves from toxic relationships, set healthy boundaries, and create deeper, more meaningful connections. Self-love is undoubtedly the cure for toxic relationships, as it gives us the power to choose what is best for us and surround ourselves with people who truly value and respect us. We have reached the crucial moment of our journey of self-awareness and transformation, the decision to take action and change. Throughout our lives, we encounter numerous signs and opportunities that the universe offers us, but often, out of fear, insecurity, or lack of trust, we fail to recognize or ignore their message. Synchronicity, as Carl Jung taught us, is a powerful tool that can help us align our choices with our true purpose. When we allow ourselves to be in tune with these signs, we may notice that the right opportunities and relationships begin to manifest in our lives more fluidly and naturally. True transformation only happens when we make the conscious decision to act in favor of our well-being. This involves letting go of what no longer serves us, whether it's a destructive behavior, a toxic relationship, or a limiting belief. Often, we become so accustomed to the pain and discomfort of negative situations that, out of fear of the unknown, we refuse to change. However, it's important to understand that by holding on to something that doesn't respect us or drains us, we are only delaying our own evolution. Letting go of what no longer serves us is a way to honor our truth and open ourselves to new possibilities. This is the moment to choose your own light. Sometimes this means making difficult decisions, such as distancing ourselves from relationships that harm us or changing direction in areas of life that once seemed firmly established. However, this choice is, in fact, a release. When we choose to align with our true essence and let go of what limits us, we make space for a more authentic, balanced, and peaceful life. By making this decision, we begin to move closer to our purpose and to the people who truly resonate with who we are. The process of transformation can be challenging, but it is essential to live a fulfilled life. Change requires courage, patience, and unwavering trust in the process of personal growth. However, when we take action and commit to our truth, we begin to experience a new level of freedom and inner peace. Every small step we take toward growth brings us closer to a future where our relationships, choices, and experiences are in harmony with our deepest self. Finally, remember that you have the power to transform your life. No matter how difficult your past has been or how challenging your journey may seem right now, you can choose to take the reins of your life and create the reality you wish to live. By allowing yourself to trust in the signs of the universe, learn from your mistakes, and free yourself from what no longer serves you, you open the doors to a new chapter of love, peace, and fulfillment. So, look within, listen to what your heart is telling you, and take the necessary action to transform your life for the better.